Alright, so I know it's been a really long time since I did my introductory video, but I've been super busy. I do have a few videos that are in the works that have already been filmed, and I just haven't found the time to edit them, but they will be coming soon. So today I figured that I'd just give you guys a quick shop tour because I remember I talked my introduction about trying to get my shop more organized, and so I'm just going to kind of show you guys what I've gotten done so far. Alright, so we're going to start off with my workbench. I'm not going to go too much into detail for this because the design is mainly based off of a video that James King over at King's Fine Woodworking did, and I've just added a few touches, so those I will go over, but I'll link the video to his build in the description below so you guys can see how he did this. The great thing that I feel I did with this workbench as well as my lathe stand here, which are almost identical designs, just different sizes, is that I made them entirely out of scrap wood. I used the scrap from my old workbenches, and I used scrap that a neighbor of mine tore apart their bed frame, and I took their 2x4s and 4x4s and I kept them in. Almost everything that I've done in my shop for organization has been done with scraps. I've had to go buy very little material to add to these projects. So other than the main design for this workbench, the few changes that I made start right up here on the top. I believe that James King used a piece of Baltic birch plywood for the top of his. I just used like the cheapest plywood I could find. Again, it was scrap. As you can see, it's actually, there's one piece here, there's a piece in the middle, and there's a piece over here. Because I didn't really care about that surface. All I cared about is that for the top, I used a piece of 1/8 inch hardboard. And my purpose for that is that it's not glued on, it's just screwed on in the front and in the back with a few of these screws. So as you can see, I've already kind of really messed up the top of it. This is a bunch of super glue from making some pens. But as this gets more and more beat up, all I have to do is take the hardboard off, replace it with another piece, and it's like I got a brand new workbench. Another thing, I have these little storage cubbies that I honestly, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them there because I don't use them that often. But they were from Harbor Freight, super cheap, and it was just a great way to add some storage as I was going along. And if you don't already have a rack for paper towels in your shop, I'd recommend adding one. This was super cheap, took me like 10 minutes to, cut up a couple pieces of plywood, put some holes in it, and, there it was. I don't think I realized how often I need or could use paper towels until I had them readily available. And the last thing that I've added, which you'll see as a trend, is I use some French cleats to add some sandpaper storage. And so I just organize it by grit, and then I have these little pieces of hardboard that I just labeled with whatever grit it was. So I've got my regular sandpaper there, as well as the sandpaper that I use for my random orbit sander. And if you don't know what a French cleat is, I pretty much just made a box, super simple, nails, glue, and then I added this piece of wood to the back that has a 40-degree cut on it. And then attached to the workbench is another piece of wood that's got a 45-degree cut on it, and as you can see right here, they just sit together like that, and it's super strong. I'll show you guys some other things that I have in the shop that are held together this way, and you guys will see just how strong these things can be. Alright, so I'm going to make this one really quick. Again, this design is almost exactly the same as my main workbench. The only thing I really want to draw attention to is that I designed the size of this cart specific to my lathe. I wanted some extra room around the sides, but I've also reinforced the top with 2x4s underneath the plywood where the lathe bolts into it. So if you're going to make this for yourself, if you're going to use it for a lathe, I'd recommend doing the same thing, reinforcing it where all the weight's going to be. And I also made sure that I made I believe it was a 1.5 to 2 inch lip around the sides all around. so that I had clamp storage. Again, I'm in a 2-car garage and I'm using less than half of it because it's still storage for the rest of my family. So I'm trying to keep my footprint small, so adding clamp storage on something like a lathe cart just to me seemed like a good idea. Alright, now this table is something that I didn't realize how much I needed it until I was able to use it for what I'm using it for now. This was the dining room table that was in my apartment when I lived in Las Vegas, and it was just a table from a thrift store. And now that I've moved out, I didn't need the table anymore, so it was either throw it away, put it in storage, or try and find a use for it in my shop. So this is really just a surface for anything that I need to work on that may be larger than the surface that I have on my workbench, or as you can see, I've just put a folding chair there. So for example, I was doing some work with a Dremel the other day. It's a lot easier to sit down and work with a Dremel at a table this height as opposed to standing at my workbench. And I've only done a couple things to this. This is a super cheap vise that I got on Amazon a few years ago. It's super cheap, but it works. So I don't have any problem with it. I just screwed it straight into the table, and then right around the back this way, I just grabbed one of these sheets of, I'm not sure what type of paper it is, but found it at Home Depot, drilled some holes through the legs, put a piece of rebar in there, and that helps for if I'm doing any spray paint or staining or something like that. I could take that paper and I can just take it and fold it over this surface, tape it to this end over here, and then like I'm not too worried about the finish of this table. As you can see, I've done quite a bit to it already, but it just helps, and it helps keep it clean. I've used, as you can see over there, quite a few different colors of spray paint, and so I prefer not to get the spray paint all over it. Alright, now on to wood storage. This is something that I've found relatively difficult to deal with. I had a lumber storage system when I was in my apartment that really just was super ineffective. I'll add a picture into the video of what that looked like. So I tore that apart, and again, out of the scraps that I had, I built this. And so it takes up a footprint of, I believe it's about 12 square feet. It is 4 feet across this way and 3 feet across that way. And it just has a lip of 2x4 here to keep them from falling out. And again, I probably could use something bigger. I'm not sure exactly how I would design it yet, but for now this is working all right. As you can see, it's kind of overflowing, and this is I have 2x4s. I have a few pieces of hardwood here, but not a lot. And then on the other side, which is relatively difficult to get to, even though this is on casters, I do have some, if you guys can see it there, I'm not sure if you can. I have some sheet good storage on the other side, but because I've been using a lot of my scraps, I don't have a whole ton of sheet goods back there, but the storage is there. And then I've got just like this little rolling cart here that picks up all of my scraps. I really need to organize it, but for now, those are just all my little cutoffs that I don't know what to do with yet, but I know I'm going to use, so I keep them there. Alright, so this is actually the first thing that I made to try and get a little bit organized. As I was moving into the garage, I realized that there were cans of spray paint and finishes and acetone all over the place. And I figured that it would be a good idea to put them in one central location. So I just made a super simple shelf where the bottom is angled up a little bit, and put it on a French cleat and stuck it on the wall. The great part about this is, if you guys have seen, there are storage racks along either side of the garage. And one big thing for organization for me is I needed to not block those. But because they're there, I don't have a ton of wall space. And so using French cleats allows me to, if I want, I could take that entire rack of spray paint, although it's rather heavy at the moment because it's full. I could take the entire thing off of the wall and get to whatever's behind it, which is something that I've done a lot with the thing that's right next to it. So right here, I made a little bit of a storage area for my pen turning kits. So I just stuck some screws through the back, and all of these pen kits up top are just stuck through those screws, and each one is a different type of pen kit. And then I've got my pen press, some super glue, my micro mesh pads, and then turning blades. I have a lot of Spectraply because I've been fiddling around with the idea of doing some Harry Potter themed pens, or doing like a Harry Potter set. That may or may not be on my Etsy store by the time you see this video. We'll see. But I may do a video about that if it's something that you guys might be interested in. Alright, this one was super simple. I know that a lot of people have different ways that they go about organizing their adhesives. I realized that while I had quite a diverse variety of adhesives, I really didn't have that many. I don't keep a lot of stock on me, so I just made a really simple little box. It's maybe a foot square. And again, I put it on a French cleat. Got a couple bottles of glue, some spray adhesive, super glue. So this one was super simple, but it's really nice to have a centralized area for all of my adhesives, so that I know where to get it when I need it. Okay, so this is probably the area that I am happiest about getting done. Each of these things is part of a French cleat system, and each one can come off. So you guys can see that this one moves, and I could take this off, I could take this off, I could take that off, I can take this entire thing off. The only thing that is actually on the storage racks behind it is a flat piece of plywood, and even that can come off because that's on a French cleat. So every single thing on here can come off super easily. Again, if I wanted to take the whole sheet off, that would mean that I'd have to take everything off the sheet, take the sheet of plywood off to get whatever's behind it. But I just made sure to take out everything from behind there that I would need on a regular basis. This has been incredibly helpful to the workflow in the shop. I can't even explain how much quicker it makes things. Knowing exactly where things are, I have all of my power tools, or at least my Ryobi power tools, at hand whenever I need them. I have 4 batteries and 3 chargers, so I have 3 charged at all time, and I've got one that I could stick on there when I'm done. But this has been immensely helpful. So if you guys have not thought about consolidating your power tools in some sort of way, this French cleat system it's great for whatever you need, and you just design a box or a holder or whatever for the size of tool you have or what type of tool you have, and there are hundreds of different ways to do that. I went really simple, especially for my sanders here. I just made a box, right? I mean, you don't need anything special. For my circular saw, I made a box that has a little opening in the back. That way the blade right here has somewhere to go down into. But again, super simple, super quick, but super effective. All right. So as you guys could probably tell from the rest of the video, my shop could use a lot more work when it comes to organization, but it has come a really far way. I'm hoping to put a picture of what the garage looked like before I started organizing in here, somewhere around this point in the video. But I mean, I have all sorts of resin turning accessories, or not turning, but just resin accessories. I've got some pigments over there. I've got an unfinished Captain America shield, some mixing buckets, a torch. They don't really belong up there, but that's where I have them for right now because I don't know what else to do with them. My bandsaw is sitting on the ground in front of our freezer because I haven't figured out where to put it yet. I have my drill press over here, pretty much underneath my table saw, because I don't really know what to do with it yet. But it's come a really far way, and I hope that if you guys came here looking for some organizational ideas, that you came away with something. If you came here looking for just some entertainment. I'm hoping that you found that here. If you have any ideas of how I could make the organizational system in here more effective, I'd love to hear it. So go ahead and put it in the comments. If you guys want to see any videos like a proper recreation of this that I got commissioned to do, please leave that in the comment. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And thanks for staying this long if you did, and have a great weekend.